Welcome to Illini Drive on 107.1 WPGU. I'm your host, Brendyn Jones, joined as always with our producer, Nathan Reddy. On this Wednesday night, I always want to say afternoon, because at the beginning of the semester it was light outside. Now it's very dark. Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's getting colder too, which I don't really love.
Yeah.
Because there's no snow yet. I want some snow if
I know you're the snow guy.
Big snow guy. But I'm excited because we got the new schedule, the full schedule, it looks like, at least for now, for the Illinois basketball team. A lot of stuff is happening in the NBA, and we're going to talk a little football with the Nebraska game this week, too.
I'm excited. I am excited. But we did promise last week that as soon as we know a schedule, we'll hit on it. We'll talk about it. And 2 hours ago, schedule came. Schedule for Big Ten came. A lot of games, 20 games. So it finally feels like the schedule's filling out, right? Like if you look 2 days ago, you would have seen 6 games. North Carolina A&T, Wright State, Ohio, then Baylor, Duke, and Missouri. Those were the only games Illinois really had scheduled. But now we know for certain that we have their Big Ten schedule. And it kind of looks a little favorable for the Illini. They only have to see Iowa one time. I think they see, I'm trying to think who else, Michigan State one time, Penn State one time, Maryland one time. So while obviously the Big Ten basketball schedule in general is going to be hard because the Big Ten looks to be pretty good this year, I feel like they drew some favorable matchups, right? I think it's unfortunate that they don't have to see Iowa twice. But yeah, I don't know. First, before we go through the schedule kind of intensely, first reaction to the Big Ten schedule.
I thought it was overall like pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's great by any means because you do have Wisconsin twice.
Yeah.
You do have some tough games in there, but I mean, clearly it's a solid schedule considering you get time between those Duke Baylor games to kind of rest and recovery. Granted, you do have the bragging rights game on December 12th, and then you go to Minnesota, who I don't imagine Minnesota is going to be great this year. Rutgers is going to be a tough game, but overall, not too bad. I mean, I am a little bit worried about the last couple of games, especially Wisconsin and Ohio State.
Yeah.
But it might be just good tune-up games going into conference tournaments and then the eventual NCAA tournament where we both envision the Illini making a big splash this season.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So let's start off with, let's just go by the schedule kind of section by section, right? The 3 games that they are going to play in November at the end of the month in a week, really. November 25th is their first game, so that's a week from today. Will be played in Champaign. 3 games, 3 days in a row. North Carolina A&T, which is obviously an HBCU from North Carolina, Wright State, and Ohio. Those are obviously the non-conference games that you're looking for a little, tune-up, making sure everything's fine. You don't envision them losing any of those games, hopefully. Definitely as a team ranked, 8th, you don't want to lose any of those games. And then the Jimmy V Classic in Indianapolis. Start off against number 2 Baylor. And that's going to be the game where that game, along with the Duke game and the Missouri game, which is always, the bragging rights game is always a big game for Illinois. Their 4th, 5th, and 6th games are all games where you're really going to see what this team is made of. Do they deserve to be in the top 10? Are they going to compete with Baylor and Duke on back-to-back games? How that's going to fare out? What are you thinking about these first 6 games?
Oh, I'm so excited. I mean, the first 3 games, I think the first thing that jumped out to me is that they're back-to-back-to-back, which I don't love, especially in college basketball where guys usually get like 4 or 5 days off between games instead of playing even a single back-to-back. But they're tune-up games. They're getting you prepared for the season, and they're essentially your preseason that you're going to have because the Illini looks like aren't going to have any preseason games this season. But those next 3 games, oof.
Yeah.
Well, actually, next 4 because the MTE, I think you'll play like the winner of each of the 2 games. So you will play, I'm pretty sure, a second game in the Jimmy V Classic. and that's going to be another great game. That might be like a Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun to see that the Illini have a tough schedule, but like a competitive schedule also, because they should be in every single one of these games. Duke, I think, has got to be the highlight though of the season, if not just the early window of games, because Duke brings a certain cachet with it. The Cameron. I mean, granted, the Cameron Crazies aren't going to be there, but it's Cameron Indoor Stadium. It's the whole legacy of Duke basketball,
Mm-hmm.
and Illinois can finally see if they're back on the map. As you said, I'm excited about this early window because we get to also finish it off with a bragging rights game, which is every year one of the best games of the season.
Definitely. So there's 7 games before the Big Ten season starts, right? What's your record going into the Big Ten season?
Ooh, I'm gonna say 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's basically imagining there's a split in the last 4 games. Most likely, you take 1 or 2 out of the 3 in the Jimmy V Classic and the Big Ten ACC Challenge against Duke, which I would be still pretty happy with.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say they go 6-1.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
I'm definitely not out of the question.
I don't think it's out of the question. I think even the game that they lose is going to be a tight game, and it'll be. We'll see. But I'm very confident in this team. Hopefully, they can hit the ground running. And then let's look at their Big Ten schedule. Right, so they start off with Minnesota in Champaign. Their first 5 games: Minnesota, Rutgers, Penn State, Indiana, Purdue. Pretty favorable. You're a little bit. I think the Indiana game is probably the highlight. The one you're looking most forward to. That's in Champaign on December 26th, the day after Christmas. So that'll be a pretty good game, I feel like. And then their game after that, Purdue, with the day after the New Year. How are we feeling about how they start off real early?
I love this early windows of games because Rutgers is really the only game I'm concerned about. And at Rutgers isn't as daunting. Yeah, because Minnesota wasn't great last year.
Right, yeah, of course.
Penn State, they fired their head coach because of all sorts of turmoil in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana, I'm not sure I believe in Archie Miller. I guess Purdue is also somewhat of a concern, but the Illini destroyed Purdue last year.
Very much
and Matt
so.
Harms left. No, Joe Eastern left, which is a good sight for the Illini. I feel really, really confident about these 5 games. I think 5-0 is very realistic.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then you got to play Northwestern with that first game out of there. Hopefully Northwestern basketball isn't as good as their football team because their football team's being phenomenal right now. And then Maryland. Maryland is obviously a game you're looking forward to. It's in Champaign.
Are you worried about Maryland because they are losing a lot of their best players?
It's not that I'm worried about Maryland. Obviously, they lost a couple players, but it's more like that's the team in the next 5 games. I feel like Maryland and Ohio State are the 2 teams where you're nervous about, at least in that section.
That's fair.
Right, like Nebraska doesn't scare me one bit.
Yeah, I mean,
Penn State, you're seeing Penn State the second time in, what would that be, less than a month, so they don't really scare me. Northwestern definitely doesn't scare me. It's just Maryland and Ohio State. I kind of try to keep it. I try to go five games at a time with these types of schedules. Keep it bracketed off. So I'm thinking in the first 10 games, Illinois could probably go. I'm gonna say 9-1.
9-1, 8-2 seems.
Seems like where you want them to be. If you're envisioning them being a top 4 seed, you kind of feel like what 5 losses is kind of the max.
When you say top 4 seed, do you mean?
I mean a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, once. Yeah, you can't have. Usually it's around 6 or 7 is the cutoff,
right?
And then you have to have an insanely impressive schedule. You probably have to win your conference tournament.
Yep.
So 5 does seem about right.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, looking at the schedule so far, it doesn't seem terribly unrealistic.
Definitely. Next 5 games: Michigan State in East Lansing. Then Iowa comes to Champaign. Indiana for your second time this season in Bloomington. Then you see Wisconsin for the first time in Champaign. Then Michigan in Ann Arbor. Definitely the Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin game. That's all in a week from January 29th to February
Oh my God, that's going to be so
6th. That's going to be a packed week. That's going to be maybe a week where Iowa or Wisconsin, or maybe both, take advantage of the Illini in that tough little schedule right there.
Mm-hmm.
Remember last year when they lost, what, was 3 or 4 in a row?
Yeah.
I think this is the part of the schedule where you see road bumps.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking initially maybe 3-2 and 4-1, but this seems like a 2-3 portion of the schedule.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, just because you're coming off of some easier parts, and then you go straight into Michigan State, Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Indiana, I don't feel tremendous about, but they're still going to be a fairly good team in the Big Ten,
right?
And then Michigan State, same thing. Iowa and Wisconsin, we feel like they're going to be two of the 3 best teams in the Big Ten, along with Illinois and Michigan. Same as the other 2, where you feel very good that they're going to be competing in every single game in the Big Ten.
Definitely. And then the last 5 games from February 16th to March 6th, you're looking at Northwestern, Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. The front end of this definitely doesn't scare me. Of course, Northwestern, Minnesota, Nebraska. Hopefully you can get a tune-up after you face that last 2 weeks span of the season that we just talked about. But then one on the last Saturday of February, and then on the first Saturday of March, you're playing Wisconsin, then Ohio State. How are you feeling about that one? Those 2?
It seems like a split. Like you're going to win one, you're going to lose one, which that late in the season probably isn't terrible because what have we calculated? 7 losses, I think, 7 or 8 losses at this point.
Yeah,
which I will gladly take as an Illini fan. I think a lot of what we'll figure out, though, is by this time we'll know where Illinois is in the hierarchy of the Big Ten, which is crucial going into the conference tournament and then the NCAA tournament.
Definitely. I feel like they're going to lose to Wisconsin because it's in Madison, but also there's not. That's the whole thing.
Well, we don't even know if there's going to be fans.
Right, exactly. You would assume that there won't be, just based on COVID numbers. If I'm being realistic, I don't see there would be fans, especially given that it's an indoor arena and all of that. But yeah, I think that they lose against Wisconsin in Wisconsin, but I think that they win in Champaign earlier in the season. I think that they also can beat Iowa. It's just that week. That week is tough. The Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin week is tough. I think at the end of the season, out of the 27 games, I am predicting 22-5 for this team. That's my first prediction of the season. Nathan, how are you feeling?
Oh, I didn't add these up. Let me quickly do it in my head. So I said 5-2 to start. Then you win your first 5 Big Ten games. So 10-2. 1, 2. This is not good content that I'm producing right now.
It's okay.
But
it's
Northwestern
okay. Math for the viewer or for the listeners.
Nebraska, Ohio State. So I'm going to say 4-1 there. 14-3 I'm at right now. 16-6. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to say 20-7.
20-7. So we're between 22-5 and 20-7. I think that's a good range. I think if you make that range, if you're the Illini, if you make that range, you go in there and you are very competitive. Obviously,
probably a top 5 seed in the tournament, 1 through 5.
Right, exactly. Then it all obviously depends on what happens in the Big Ten tournament. You would assume if you have that type of schedule in the Big Ten, where what'd you say? What would that have been? 15-5 in the Big Ten.
So for mine, it would have been
I think I had them 16-4,
15-5,
and you had them 15-5. If you do that, you have to assume you're a top 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
Going through that, if you win the Big Ten tournament or you lose in the championship game, that's only going to help you. Obviously, you want to win if you want to be a number 1 seed, but this isn't a team I think that needs to be a number 1 seed. I'd actually probably prefer if they weren't a number 1 seed. Number 1 seed scare me more.
I'd want to be a 1 seed. Just the whole aura of being a 1 seed.
Just be so Illinois to get upset, though.
It would be, but also...
And I hate the fact that you, if you're a number 1 seed, pretty much until, the Sweet 16, or maybe even the Elite 8, it's going to be an upset if you lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically an upset until the Final Four.
Yeah, but I feel like the 2 seeds maybe it all depends on who advances and whatnot. But I feel like if you get beat by a 2 seed or a 3 seed, it's not as bad as like losing to a 7 or 8 seed, which I would not want to see.
I mean, I just love the 1 seed just because you'd likely get an easier path, but it's the NCAA tournament, so
so it's different, especially because everybody's going to have different types of schedule this year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm excited. When we get back, we can talk about this a little bit more. Who we think is going to be good at different times of the season, all that stuff. Get into it a little bit more, and then we're going to hit on NBA. Transition to that. It's still early stages of free agency and trade talks and transactions with different teams. And then we're going to end off with Illini football. So stick with us on Illini Drive 107.1 WPGU. Welcome back to Illini Drive on 107.1 WPGU. So let's get to who we think are going to be the starters. Game 1, North Carolina A&T. My starting 5 to begin the season is Trent Frazier, Ayo Dosunmu, DeMonte Williams, Jacob Grandison, and Kofi Coburn. I feel like it's kind of tough after the way we saw Georgie Pashonishvili play, especially in the second half of the season, to kind of count him in as a starter. I always hear good things about Grandison. I think if he is healthy to start the season, they're gonna see him in there a lot. I also think it gives them a little bit of length, a little bit of versatility offensively and defensively. And I think Trent, Ayo, and Kofi are definitely locks.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that too. Trent, Ayo, Kofi, locks. DeMonte, I feel like, is basically a lock.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Start at the beginning of
his
the season.
Experience and his effort.
Yeah, totally. And then I'm going to go Georgie, just because I think Brad's going to stick with what he knows, but I don't imagine that happening for the entire season.
Yeah, I was really debating whether or not I would have Georgie in there. I think last year you didn't really have somebody you felt like you could really replace him with that was going to be consistent, that didn't leave you a little bit too small on the guard end. But I think this year you do with Grandison, maybe even Coleman Hawkins, depending on how he fits in. I know a lot of people are high on him, but I think he still has to develop a little bit. We'll see where he's at in the middle of the season.
He feels like a year 2 starter or a year 3
starter.
Yeah,
exactly. So, yeah, we'll see. Going into the Big Ten season against Minnesota to start the season in Champaign, just a few changes. Trent, Ayo, Kofi obviously still locks at the 1, 2, and 5. But I think Adam Miller steps up and is able to play kind of they have like a 3-guard rotation with those 3, Trent, Ayo, and Adam, and I think his scoring will be a needed boost. Mm-hmm. And then I still have DeMonte moving to the 4, being able to guard a lot of people. But I also think when it comes to the Big Ten season, this is going to be a team that is able to transition a lot during the course of the game, even depending on who they're playing. It's going to be a very, very fluid lineup. I think they're very versatile. They have a lot of different options, and I think it's really going to come down to that, depending on who they're playing, right? You obviously don't want DeMonte if you feel like you have a mismatch somewhere. So I think it all obviously depends on who you play, but I think against Minnesota to start it off, I think you see Adam Miller start and DeMonte kind of move to the 4.
Okay, that'd be interesting. So DeMonte's the interesting one for me here because it does feel like Brad's willing to fluctuate his playing time throughout his time at Illinois, and we've seen it over the last 2 years where he started most of the games, but he's also come off the bench a fair amount of the time. So I'm going to say Trent, Ayo, Kofi, once again, locks. I feel like Trent's going to be one of those players that starts basically every game but 1 or 2, where it's just matchup dependent for maybe if you want to go big for a couple games. Mm-hmm. But he's basically locked in. Ayo and Kofi, yeah, we know they're locked in. I'm going to say Adam Miller as well. I think he's going to show a lot, especially in those early games, especially when you see Duke and Baylor with their athleticism. Adam Miller is going to really shine as well for the Illini. And then I'm going to go Austin Hutcherson at the last spot because he really feels like the guy that could fill that Alan Griffin role for this team, which they really need.
Yeah, definitely. So, in terms of a player that I think should really look to step up, I think it's a very easy choice. Definitely the right choice, but a very easy choice to say Georgie Pashonishvili. I think that's been something for the last year now since they started playing last year. I'd really like to see Jermaine Hamlin kind of assert his role, right? I think he's a player that last year got a few different opportunities, especially with Kofi in foul trouble. He's a 6'10", sophomore. He's really big. He's long. I think depending on the Kofi foul situation, obviously last year, as we see with a lot of freshmen, we saw he was really quick into foul trouble. And I think Jermaine Hamlin's the biggest and most experienced guy that you have under Kofi. So you're going to need to have him step in at certain points. And I'd love to see him really step up and solidify that center role off the bench.
I like you bringing up Jermaine Hamlin because last year we didn't really have a true backup center. It was Kofi, then Georgie played a little bit of like that hybrid 4-5 that he did in his first few years at Illinois. I mean Georgie does feel like the obvious choice.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say Jacob Granderson and Austin Hutcherson just because Alan Griffin was so big on the team last year.
Right.
And those two guys seem like the likely players to fill in that 3-and-D role. And it's just going to be about who can do it. If you can and you can fill in the aggregate with those two guys, Alan Griffin's role, I think the Illini are going to be really successful this season. It's just whether you have the talent to do that.
Definitely. And then the last type of player we're going to hit on is surprise player. I think DeMonte Williams is really going to surprise us. We saw at the end of last year in those last few games, obviously before the Big Ten tournament was canceled, DeMonte had a stretch of games where he didn't score and then came back and hit a few threes in different games. I know I was watching the Iowa game where he hit a few threes. It was pretty important in that. I think DeMonte, while he doesn't score a lot, can score. I don't see why he couldn't. He's a fine three-point shooter. He just didn't get a lot of opportunities to score. I think that if he can turn into a 6-7 point a game guy where you're really consistent, can get to the line, that can only help him in the team because you know how well rounded this team is, how much they can already score, and how good they are on defense. So I think he's gonna surprise us with obviously how well he already plays defense and how much effort he gives, but I think he's also gonna surprise us on the offensive end.
That's an interesting pick because I wouldn't expect DeMonte to really break out this year, but I'd love to see it. I mean, I still think
I don't know if it's a breakout as much as it's just him being more comfortable in that role and being like, because last year I feel like his role was a lot different than it was even, the year before that, in terms of who he's playing with, like what type of minutes he's playing, all that. I think that this is just it can be another shift for him. And I think, with just all the talent around him, I think it's a good opportunity for him to show that he's more than just that effort guy.
Okay, I see what you mean. I still think he kind of is that role. But
yeah,
I'd be glad to have him make me change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think my surprise player is going to be Andre Curbelo, and fellow Daily Illini writer Brandon Simberg's been hyping him up on Twitter, and it's due because this Illini team doesn't really have a true point guard. I mean, I guess Io was that, but he's not really a true point guard. And Curbelo is in every form of the word. And the thing that I'm excited is that he's going to get opportunities to take control of this team as a backup, but he's going to get those 10, 15 minutes where he can run the offense and where he can push pace and he can find Kofi, Jermaine Hamlin down low and then kick it out to some of these shooters. I really think he's going to have a good year, granted with limited minutes.
Definitely. Yeah, so I think it should be a very, very exciting season. I'm ready for it to start. I didn't know if we were going to get this opportunity this year to watch this team do what they obviously circumstances did not allow them to do last year and go out and compete for stuff. for a Big Ten championship. Go out to see how far they can go in March Madness. This year, they're a lot more talented, a lot more deep. So I'm very, very excited for these guys to get that opportunity.
It's been 15 years, and we're ready. We're ready to,
to
get the second shot for the Illini to make a deep run in the tournament.
Very much ready. Shifting gears to professional basketball. Man, some stuff happened today over the last 2 days since we've last talked about the NBA. Most notably, I think that happened today. Sixers decided to trade Al Horford and some picks to the Thunder for Danny Green.
Brendyn, let's just start it off. Good move, bad move for the Sixers.
Yeah, I think it's a good move.
I think it's a great move.
You have to get that Al Horford contract off, man. That Al Horford, while he was great for what he was on the Celtics, was he there for 2 or 3 years?
He was there for 4, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
He was there for a while.
I remember when he was on the Hawks, man. While he was great for what he did on the Celtics, of course, he just did not fit into that Sixers offense at all. He was very, very, very limited. And even his defense, which was so good, wasn't as good as it was when he was on the Hawks and the Celtics. Mm-hmm. Whether that be him just getting older or whether that be him just not fitting in with that system. Not a lot of people are fitting in with that Sixers system. So we'll see what happens when he goes to play with the Thunder. If he stays there, he might move again. Nobody really knows at this point. I think that's a good move for the Sixers, really. And I think for the Thunder, you got to fill out that team somehow because you don't really know what that team's going to be. You obviously lose Chris Paul. You have still a very young team. Steven Adams is still there. Now you have to find room for Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio. So it'll be interesting. I like it, though.
I'd agree with you with that. I mean, the thing about this is that the Al Horford contract is still 3 more years, and the Sixers were trying to do anything they can to get off that deal. Danny Green's is only 1 year. I think it's like $15 million. So it's very feasible. And with the picks you're giving up, you're only giving up 2 picks. It's a second-round pick, I believe, this year, the 34th pick, and then in 2025. So
right.
You have plenty of time. I think the Thunder are kind of perplexing at this point because they are doing exactly what it appears just by acquiring picks and getting younger. But I'm not sure what the end of this is supposed to be.
Definitely. It'll be interesting to see what the Thunder do with all those picks and that stuff. You have to assume that they don't want all those picks. They want to trade for assets. They want to trade for players.
Yeah.
I think they're probably still, if you're looking at, SGA, if you're looking at Kelly Oubre, who's still a pretty young guy, I think your move is really 2-3 years away. Hopefully you can still do it when Steven Adams is still a formidable player on defense. So it'll be interesting. I don't think this happened when we talked about it on Monday, but the Pelicans send Drew Holiday to...
Happened that night. So.
It happened that night. Pelicans send Drew Holiday to the Bucks for... It was
George
Eric
Hill.
Bledsoe and George Hill, correct?
And 3 picks.
And 3 picks. Yeah, so that was a lot for Drew Holiday, but I do think I talked about this yesterday because I was on the show with Josh. Drew Holiday's a really underrated player. I think he's really, really good on defense, and he is pretty good on offense. And I think that's the type of player you need. You need somebody that can really get the ball in the hands of Giannis so the offense doesn't go all the way through him all the time. We've seen that not really work in the playoffs for 2 years in a row now. So I think it's a really good move. You have another player that can go out there and score. You have another good defender out there. They did trade for Bogdan Bogdanović. For some reason, something's wrong with that. Something happened with that, right? I'm reading right now, Bogdan trade in peril. I don't really know the situation with that.
Oh, I didn't even know that was happening.
Yeah, so it was apparently Bogdan Bogdanović never agreed to join in the Bucks because I think it was a sign and trade.
Yeah, it was.
Right, so it was a sign and trade, and I think Bogdan never agreed to join the Bucks, which I don't know why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm reading that right now on Woj's Twitter account, which is Yeah, how do you report that if
Wild.
the main player in the trade
Right.
agreed to sign? That seems
So apparently, Bogdan Bogdanovic, restricted free agent, cannot officially be traded until Sunday. So I think we'll kind of figure that out in the next couple of days. Great shooter, guy that you really want on the Bucks. Somebody that can shoot, somebody that can
could fit around Giannis.
Could fit around Giannis. That's exactly what you want. So we'll see. Hopefully he goes there. I think that'd be a really good move for all that in the Bucks situation. Now, last thing we do before we talk about the draft, obviously want to tell you guys about Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Shortly before the show, news broke that he has suffered an apparent lower leg injury. He's not able to put any weight on his leg. It is in his right leg, not his left leg, which he tore his ACL in the finals 2 years ago. So we'll see. Obviously, you want Klay Thompson to be at full health. He's one of the best guys to watch. He's one of the best guys on the court anytime he plays. And that's just a tough situation because he missed all of last season with that ACL injury. So hopefully we'll know. He's going through tests. We'll know in the next few days what's up with him. But obviously, we want him to have a very speedy recovery.
Yeah, you hope it's just like something where he's out for a month and not another year, because he hasn't played a game since that game 6 against the Raptors in the finals.
Definitely.
Also, it's important to note that Gordon Hayward looks like he's going to be on the move sometime soon.
Yeah.
The Celtics are trying to trade him, and the Hawks look like a prime candidate for that.
Yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see. Hold on while I pull up this draft board.
Should we just go through
Yeah,
what
so
our like top 5 picks are or something like that?
yeah, let's go there. So let's recap who has the
So number 1 is the Minnesota Timberwolves, who really struggled down the stretch last season, even after trading for D'Angelo Russell. And ever since Jimmy Butler left, it's been kind of a struggle for them.
Right.
At 2, you got the Warriors coming off basically a season where you had Steph Curry, very limited. Draymond Green was sitting a lot. Klay Thompson was obviously out. It seemed like a rebuild, sort of retool year. At number 3, who's the number 3 pick, actually?
It's the Hornets.
Hornets, right. Just a lot of young pieces, Devontae Graham, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, but they're still looking for that star. Number 4, obviously, the Chicago Bulls, who, with a new front
GM,
office,
new coach, new front office.
maybe something good happens this year.
Yeah, I'm excited.
They've been rumored a lot with the Warriors about
swapping picks. I heard some,
I do not like.
Right, I heard some Pelicans. I heard some Warriors. I want them to stay in that 4. I don't think they need to trade out of it. I think they can get somebody that they want at 4.
Yeah, I mean, Wiseman is the only guy that would make sense for number 2, but just giving up Wendell Carter makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, for some guy, I think I'm very high on Wendell. I know he's been inconsistent. He's struggled through injuries. But I think when he's out there, he totally affects the defense. I think that if he can put together a couple healthy seasons, he can be up there and get some all-defensive teams. So
yeah,
I'm a huge Wendell guy.
And number 5, finishing it off, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Still in rebuild mode, but Colin Sexton looked pretty good last year. Darius Garland had some improvement down the stretch. They're still looking for their guy, though.
Right. Definitely. So if you are, let's go through the top 5, right? If you are the Timberwolves, who do you take?
This is like the wrong year to be the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I know, it's a very tough year.
Not only are the prospects not great, the guy I'd want to take is James Wiseman, but you have Cat already, which kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
I guess you go Anthony Edwards and hope he just balls out his rookie year and then you can flip him for someone else. But I would not like to be the Timberwolves right now.
Yeah, my pick is Anthony Edwards. A lot of people have LaMelo Ball going number 1. I think LaMelo Ball and D'Angelo Russell are very similar.
Yeah, I don't think it would look good together.
Types of players, and I don't think it would mesh well. I'm also not sold on LaMelo Ball. I think I'm more sold on him than when he was in high school, but he still hasn't impressed me that he should be the consensus number 1 pick. I'll say that.
Yeah, you know my feelings about LaMelo.
Yeah, we talked about it on Monday. But so I have I want Anthony Edwards to go number 1.
Did you see that that quote though from Anthony Edwards?
Man, he's weird. He's a weird guy.
That's crazy.
He said something about the pandemic. I'm gonna pull it up real quick.
Okay, but so he basically said, I think it was yesterday, where he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I really prefer football over basketball. It's kind of my thing, but yeah, I mean, if you told me I could be a football player, I'd probably do that in a heartbeat."
Yeah, that's what he said. He said if he got drafted in the NFL every episode, if he got drafted in the NFL today, that he would leave football behind or basketball behind. Saying that he basically doesn't love basketball, he just loves it because he does it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means. He's still a really good player, was at Georgia, and I think he could turn out to be a solid player. But his pandemic quote, I love it. He said, "I feel like the pandemic was nothing to me. I was already living in a pandemic because all I wanted to do was get better."
Okay.
He later then explains that he's like an in-home kid. All he did was like play with the dogs, play video games, and practice. So that kind of makes sense. He's kind of been at that stay-at-home mentality his whole life. I think it was just really weird. I don't know. He's a weird guy. Number 2 to the Warriors. Do you think? Let me ask you this before I tell you before I ask you who they pick. Do you think they try to trade that pick tonight?
Yeah, but I don't think they end up finding a suitable partner, and I think they just wait and end up trading the guy they draft.
Well, who do you think they draft?
James Wiseman.
I agree. I am not a huge James Wiseman guy. I think he just fits more than anybody else in the top 6 or 7 with the Warriors. You need a big man, and hopefully, if he's good enough in his rookie year, he can obviously be good in that system. I mean, centers who aren't that great have flourished in that system in the past 5-6 years. So it is what it is, right? And you'd love for him to develop and see what he can do if they make the playoffs. Hopefully, Klay Thompson is healthy. Number 3 to the Hornets. We have.
I'm gonna go Killian Hayes, French guard, who looks like he has a lot of tools already built in. Mm-hmm. It's just about refining them and making sure he's a good shooter. And
definitely. I think, I like Killian Hayes. I've heard a lot of comparisons to like James Harden. I like guys that play overseas and play professionally. There's a lot of guys like that in this draft. I think we just have to be careful because like we see like the Kristaps and the Lukas, and we don't remember like the
Darko
Milicic is the God, what is his name? Play on the Bulls. I can't even remember. Niko Mirotić guys that were just kind of role players in the NBA. But we'll see. I like the young guys who go out and have played professional ball for a few years.
For every Luka, there's like 5 Jan Vesleys.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so and then we look at number 4. Obviously, the Chicago Bulls have number 4 pick. Who do you want them to take?
It's once again, like I talked about this last episode, like couldn't the Bulls have gotten this pick any other year?
Yeah, literally any other year.
But I think they take Denny Avdija.
Yeah.
That's how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out tonight.
So he's got a lot of things you like. He's a versatile defender. He fits a wing role that it looks like the Bulls could address, which there aren't a ton of guys that are great wings in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
But the concerns are that like he really can't shoot that well, which I don't like to hear, but maybe it's a developmental sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not a huge fan of the wings that can't shoot well. I think obviously the Otto Porter experiment hasn't really panned out. It has its up and downs. He's off the court a lot. But that's kind of the type of guy I would love to have, somebody who's solid at defense, somebody that can hit the 3 and can score for you. But there, like you said, there's not really a guy like that in the draft. I hear a lot of people saying the Bulls may take Onyeka Okongwu. I like that pick.
I've seen a lot of Patrick Wright.
Yeah,
recently from Florida State.
I've also seen here. I'm looking Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State. So that'd be cool. I don't know. I'm really it's up in the air for this pick. I wish it, like you said, I wish it was a different year. But it's not, and this is what happens. Who do you have going number 5 to the Cavaliers?
I think this is where LaMelo gets taken, either by the Cavs or from a trade with the Pistons or the Knicks? Because it seems like they want him, and he said in the past that he wants to go to Detroit or New York.
Yeah, definitely. I really think that the Cavs keep this pick and pick up Obi Toppin at this.
Oh, Obi,
yeah,
nice.
I think it is. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I like Obi Toppin. He's very athletic.
How could you not like him after last year's performance?
Yeah, I mean, he was great last year. Obviously, National Player of the Year, carried Dayton to heights that we didn't see. Obviously, didn't get to see him or anyone in March Madness. But I think they pick Obi Toppin. I think they like him, and I think they're in need of an athletic rim running kind of forward. So we'll see. But yeah, that covers our draft coverage. We'll obviously fill it out on Monday when we talk. Or no, not even Monday. We won't be here. Man, this is the last Wednesday show until
we'll fill it out via text message or two.
Yes, me and Nathan will obviously be talking about it. But we'll fill it out next time we're here. But then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Illinois-Nebraska game that is on Saturday. Tell you what you need to know, what you need to look forward to when we get back on Illini Drive 107.1 WPGU. Welcome back to Illini Drive at 107.1 WPGU. On Saturday, what's the date of Saturday? It'll be the 21st, right? No, 29th is tomorrow.
Wednesday, today's the 18th. 1, 2, 3.
We're so good at math. That is why.
21st.
Yeah, so it'll be the 21st. Nebraska plays Illinois in Nebraska. Obviously, Illinois coming off their first win of the season. They sit at the bottom of the Big Ten West at 1-3. This is a game where we've said it a lot. Like, you kind of think is the last opportunity for Illinois to
last winnable game.
It's their last winnable game, right? They're obviously after that they have to play Ohio State the following week, Iowa, which is the worst of the three teams, but it's still. I mean, they beat Minnesota when they played them by a hefty amount. By a hefty amount. And then you have to play Northwestern, who looks really, really good this year. So, yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. What is their big storylines? Isaiah Williams rushed for 192 yards, sealed the win for the Illini. Got Big Ten Freshman of the Week, except he most likely will not be playing because Brandon Peters is, as far as we know, is fine with his COVID procedures and his tests and such, and will be playing on Saturday against Nebraska for the first time since he only had 87 yards against Wisconsin. That's probably the biggest story. Pretty much you're getting everybody back from COVID protocol, unless there's new players, which obviously you don't want to hear about. But yeah, the thing that's going to be different from the Illinois win against Rutgers and the Nebraska win is obviously rushing. Illinois had over 330 rushing yards in that win against Rutgers. You can't imagine they're going to do that again. Unless Mike Epstein and Chase Brown both just have phenomenal games. You're obviously going to look more for passing. They had just over 100 yards passing against Rutgers. You want Brandon Peters to go up there maybe 250 to 300.
You expect it to be better than last week.
Yeah, you obviously expect it to be better than last week. So yeah, what are you really looking forward to on Saturday?
I'm looking forward to Brandon Peters and the passing offense because we had that one Karan Taylor game against Purdue where the ball was moving through the air. Yeah. But even in that game, Karan Taylor had some really poor turnovers that hurt the Illini offense.
Yeah.
Brandon Peters just seems like the guy that's ready to turn the ship around.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, right? Because Brandon Peters, we obviously had a lot of faith in this offense, and then they go up against a really, really formidable Wisconsin defense and kind of just get, their butt handed to them. Really,
yeah.
They weren't really allowed to pass. They weren't given opportunities to run. It was a very, very bad offensive game. We see what Karan Taylor can do with these receivers. Had 287 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really, really good performance minus the turnovers that kept them out of the win. but yeah, you'd hope that if you can get similar production without the mistakes that Karan Taylor had against Nebraska, you're looking to be in a good game. I think the spread right now is 15 points.
That's too high.
I think that's way too high. I think it should be maybe 10.
I think it should be like a touchdown game, honestly.
Yeah, I could see it being a touchdown game. I obviously don't blame people for not having faith in the Illinois defense, even though they did show up really, really well against Rutgers, especially in the fourth quarter. But yeah, we don't know what we're going to see from this offense with Brandyn Pietsch. Hopefully, if we get a consistent game, if we get a non-fluky game, we can grade this offense better and see what it really will look like to close out the season, these last 4 or 5 games. But yeah, we'll see. And hopefully, I think my biggest thing, my key to the game really is the defense going to play like they did in the third and fourth quarters, or are they going to play like they played in the first 3 games? And if they play like they played against Rutgers, I think this team actually has a chance. I think that the defense can put them in spots where they're going to win. But if they go out and play like they did against Wisconsin, or they go out like they played against Minnesota, it's going to be a very, very tough game for Illinois' offense to stay in.
Yeah, and the defense in the second half of that game really shut down the passing attack for Rutgers. They were able to stifle that offense where they scored 1 touchdown, but wasn't really much after that.
Right.
And a lot of what the Illini defense was able to do was pressure and then make back-end plays with your secondary. That's why Nate Hobbs gets that pick. That's why you get these tackle for losses and a sack throughout the game. And it helps. It helps that Jake Hansen has been phenomenal this season and that Owen Carney Jr. has been great. Now it's up to the secondary to keep this going and be consistent and stay through the whole game, because the Illini defense hasn't shown up for the most part of this season. Let's see if this is the turning point now. Now, can they be here to stay, and can that secondary make plays when they need to make plays?
Yeah, hopefully they can. You look towards Saturday. What is your score prediction for the game?
You know what? Maybe I'm reaching a little, but I feel like the Illini win this game.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, surprise.
It is a surprise.
I haven't predicted them to win a game all season.
Which is very fair because they've only won once.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of accurate. I was more as the weeks went on, it was harder to predict they were going to win. I think they lose this game, though. I think it'll be by a score. Maybe I'm feeling 24-17.
I'm going to go 27-23 Illini.
Okay.
Actually, 27-21.
Okay.
Let's make it a nice, even number.
I'm feeling with it. I'm feeling with it. But yeah, that will do it for our show. I don't know when we'll talk to you guys next. Hopefully in 2 weeks. But yeah, for me and for Nathan, it's been Illini Drive on 107.1 WPGU.